It says that he hallucinated one of their scientists' coats being composed of furry worms. And then after 120 hours, he went to a hotel. And when he opened the drawer, he saw a fire come out of it. And they ran out into the street for help. So, like, at that point, he's kind of like losing touch with reality.
Welcome back to Out of the Box podcast, where Steele and I, your host, get to talk about out of the box ideas. Today, we're going to be talking about sleep deprivation and the effects on the human body. So, before we actually get started, I want to invite you guys to subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. It helps us continue providing amazing content for you guys. So, if you can please help us out with a like and subscription. We are definitely committed to helping you guys continue learning about new things and providing new content that boggles your mind. So without further ado, so sleep deprivation, what are the effects of not sleeping? Stu,
Yes.
let us know a little bit about it.
I think a lot of people maybe watching this as maybe had sleep deprivation and, every once in a blue
Pulled
moon.
an all-nighter.
Yeah. Like back in the day, like you stayed up all night or you couldn't sleep or you experimented with going a few days without sleep. Some people like to do that. And maybe you felt really tired, your mood changed, you felt bad. The next day it was everything was slowed down, stress, more easily stressed out. Um, I think it's interesting though because it shows us how important sleep is. Sometimes that's something we could take for granted at times. But I think it's fascinating when you look deeper into like what what does sleep deprivation do? It's one thing to look like at one night of no sleep or something, but when you go to like several days or even 3 days of no sleep, you start to find really, really interesting results and things that you wouldn't expect. So I'm just gonna quickly kind of run through like the history. I'm gonna jump into some experiments on animals, and then I'm gonna go to what human beings have experienced with it, and then I'll jump into some of the effects of sleep deprivation, and then I'll jump to you and kind of see what you think about all of it. And feel free to jump in at any point if you find something interesting. So first, there was this experiment. There's a few experiments actually. There's one on puppies, and there was one in 1894 with a Russian physician called Marie de Manekin. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who kept these dogs awake by constantly stimulating them, and then to see like how a lack of sleep would affect them. Right. So it was fascinating. What happened is because after a certain amount of time, I think if I remember correctly, it was something like 2 weeks straight. They kept the dogs awake, and they had to constantly like work really hard on the last, I think, week or so to keep them awake. And think about it, no sleep for 2 weeks straight, if that's how long it was. And apparently, the dogs had died. They just died, because they didn't have sleep for so long. It just literally killed them. And there's actually another experiment 4 years later I'm seeing by Lambert, Daddy, and Giulio
And
Tirozzi.
how did they keep him awake again? The
They
puppies?
just they kept him like stimulated. I guess they just kind of,
Just like caffeine or something.
yeah. I don't know if they used drugs or not, but I think they could have, or maybe they just kind of kept playing with them, or every time they fell asleep, they just kind of pushed them or something.
Mhm.
But these other people, Lambert and Giulio, they kept dogs awake by walking them until they died, which
Wow.
those dogs that says died after 9 to 17 days of no sleep. So just think about that for a second. That's only a little over a week, and that's not doesn't seem that long, but 9 days,
Wow.
and then they
So
just,
after 9 days, they died.
yeah, it's crazy. And so it's saying that both of those experiments showed that there was changes in body temperature in the blood cells, and there were hemorrhages in the brain. So maybe that played a role in it. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Um, that just blows my mind.
So were they being fed during this time as well? I'm
Mhm.
sure they were, right? They were being fed,
Yeah,
but just no sleep.
yeah, because it's saying that it was unrelated to food consumption. So I'm assuming they must have kept feeding them and all that stuff, like food and water. So
Yeah.
apparently, we can speculate it was sleep. So it's kind of
That's crazy to think, man. Like that not sleeping at all can lead to death in just a couple of days.
Yeah, like 9 days at least. It's just kind of blows my mind. And then it's crazy because then you jump to human beings. So you can look at animals, that's one thing, but what does this look like in human beings? And you think, oh no, no human has done that. But actually, there's this guy, famous guy called Peter Tripp. He was a radio personality person, and it was in 1959 that he wanted to test sleep deprivation and break like the world record or something like that. So he wanted to stay up like as long as he possibly could. And I think he did it live on the radio or something like that, so that he was being held accountable for what he was saying, so that he would constantly update people on the radio of like his status of staying awake. And apparently he stayed up for a total of 201 hours, which when you calculate that, that's about 8 days straight, give or take 8.5. So it's kind of mind blowing. So that's not 9 days, but and he didn't die from it. But what happened is he started hallucinating only about after 72 hours. And a lot of people who talk about sleep deprivation who've actually done it too, because some people do it on YouTube or for fun, they say they start hallucinating after only 3 days of no sleep. So that's just like what? It's kind of
Like why hallucinating, right?
why does the brain hallucinate? You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be that, you know, it just kind of loses sense of reality, right? Or maybe certain chemicals in the brain, are being produced a different way, almost to the same way as when we numb our brain with drugs, right? And it causes hallucinations. So it's
Yeah,
like a chemical imbalance.
yeah, like the brain like malfunctions, without enough sleep.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it happens gradually, right? So with Peter Tripp, it started out with him being in a bad mood, just like any of us would be if we didn't get a day of, no sleep. Um, so it started out with that, and then his emotions. He started feeling more depressed the longer he went on, and then after a while, it says he became incoherent. So like he was saying things that just didn't make sense anymore. And imagine people listening to this on the radio, and he started saying things that just and apparently like he saw like I think spiders or snakes or something. He was like hallucinating it, and he was like freaking out. And during the radio show, because I read that in a book, I can't remember if that's right. um so yeah, it's just kind of crazy, like, so his mind slowly just kind of started drifting away the longer he stayed up. And he was 32 years old. It's not like he was an old man or anything. He was still
Yeah,
pretty young and healthy, so it just shows how sleep deprivation can just you know cause all that.
yeah. What was there? What side effects did he have after the 81 or 211 hours or so?
Yeah, so here's leading up to that. So it says after 100 hours without sleep, he started having trouble doing mental agility tests that they were having him doing, and he got to the point where he couldn't even take it anymore. He couldn't stand it anymore. Um,
Like the games or the
yeah, like they must have been having
agility?
him do like mental kind of games to see how the sleep deprivation was affecting him. And
It was almost like the stress he couldn't handle.
yeah, like because imagine the more you don't go to sleep, you just get stressed. And they said it says that he hallucinated one of their scientist coats being composed of furry worms. And then after 120 hours, he went to a hotel, and when he opened the drawer, he saw a fire come out of it, and they ran out into the street for help. So like at that point, he's kind of like losing touch with reality. And he said, and at that point, it says he started accusing his doctors of staging the whole event to test him. So it's like he forgot the original thing he was trying to do. After 120 hours, it's like because he started it, right? And then at that point, he's starting to blame the doctor, so he doesn't even know. Can't even remember anymore. It's kind of. But yeah, to
It's
get to
interesting.
your
Yeah.
to your question, from what I remember, he from what I remember from the book I read, it says that his personality changed so much, like it permanently changed, and it was such a different kind of change that I think his wife ended up divorcing him.
Wow.
So like it was like a permanent thing almost. So it just shows like how no sleep for a certain amount of time just It says that the doctors gave him stimulants to keep him awake. And when it was over, he slept for 13 hours straight, recovering. And they said he seemed fine, but he felt emotionally unstable and had headaches that kept happening. So it's kind of crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, it like you said, maybe it creates, like, it damages the brain in itself too, right? Because if it's always active, it's never reaching that delta state of rejuvenating. You know, it's always in the alpha or beta state, which is the fight or flight state. Then it's always like, it's almost like a predator is always there, kind of deal. Like that flight or fight, uh sensation. And so that causes a lot of stress in the brain, to where maybe it starts malfunctioning and creating, things that are not supposed to be there, which makes me think, like, um people who sometimes, like, lose touch of reality. Is it because they also had some sort of sleep deprivation, or how much sleep deprivation is too little? Like, can somebody just survive off of 3 hours of sleep a day? Or maybe, like, because I've heard of, like, this like rare, um like, thing, or like, not symptom, but like, situation where people can't actually go to sleep.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
but it's natural for them, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. I haven't heard of that.
Like, it's not like insomnia, but it's like, they're people who just, they don't need to sleep. Like, it's a rare case where, like, they can just be like, take a nap and then be okay and just keep doing their life.
Yeah, I think Leonardo da Vinci did that. He slept in like 3 hour or 2 hour increments, and that's why they you could speculate why he was so creative, because we say that creativity kind of spikes right during certain sleep stages.
Mhm.
That's what that reminds me of. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this specifically is like, they didn't sleep at all.
Oh, really?
It's like a situation where, what, it's not a situation. It's like, people people who are, I guess, diagnosed with this abnormality, where
Uh-huh.
they don't need to sleep.
I did not know that. Yeah, because the only one I know about is insomnia, and I know
Yeah.
that's actually
Uh, yeah, I guess I'll have to look that up for another one. But
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting how sleep deprivation can lead to so many changes in the body, that
Yeah.
and I think, to some degree, maybe even sleep is more important than food. Like,
Well,
getting,
right. It's, or at the very least equally important, right? Because
yeah,
the dogs, for example, they're given food and all that, but because they didn't have enough sleep for 9 days, they died. I mean, that's just kind of extreme. Like before I read that or any of this, I would never have guessed that sleep deprivation could kill someone.
yeah,
It's kind of insane. Well, and then it's like the hallucination stuff is really interesting too. And all the other standard symptoms, like your thinking slows down, you feel tired, you have to struggle to get through the day, your attention span decreases, your memory gets worse, decision making becomes riskier, you make poor decisions, and stress, anxiety, like we talked about, feeling irritable, of course. So, and I also think it's also dangerous, because a lot of car accidents happen because of drowsy driving too. So it's not just like, you know, it's all kinds of, it can affect different areas.
yeah. People fall asleep on the wheel, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because there's sometimes people who, like, are truck drivers, and they just continue driving, like, almost for 12 hours,
Yeah.
sometimes, like, overnight, you know? And yeah, their sleep schedule is all out of whack, you know?
Yeah.
And so I sometimes wonder, because some people or some companies, they have they get scheduled to do, like, night shifts and that sort of thing. And so whenever, because our body has a natural clock in itself. We're
Yeah,
naturally made to go to sleep at sundown, right?
yeah,
But like when you push that sideways and you wake up at when the sun is going down so that you can work your night shift, then I'm sure that messes up things environmentally
yeah.
because your body is not in sync with the sun. Because I mean, they actually say, the sun in itself produces, you know, good environment for human beings. And so if you're not getting sunlight, if you're not getting, exposure to the environment that creates,
That's
then
right.
one's missing out on a lot of things. And I know we're talking about sleep deprivation, but I'm just saying, like, for people who maybe have to double shift, or or maybe have to sleep in the morning, and are deprived of the night sleep, you
Yeah,
know?
it's incredibly difficult when you're talking about can develop into shift. It's called shift work sleep disorder. And it's yeah, it's like so basically what you're saying is the circadian rhythms, we're naturally our circadian rhythms goes by the sunlight. And so, when you sleep during the day and you work at night, that's incredibly difficult because it's naturally the body is you're just kind of attuned to the sun to be awake when the sun is out and to go to sleep in the dark. So I think some people, from what I remember hearing, with shift work like that at night, they have to like completely blacken out their room in order to make it work sometimes, and their lives have to be changed and they have to get used to it. And some people it's easier than others, but yeah, that's definitely that could be a big issue too.
Yeah.
I think it's just fascinating going back to like sleep deprivation. It's like the brain just falls apart when you don't get enough sleep. Because when we think about what is sleep for, it's for learning things, it's for storing memories, it's for rejuvenating the mind, but also the body. I mean, we know that the body physically, the cells get replaced and strengthened and all that stuff when we're sleeping. The body does change when we're sleeping. And so when you don't get sleep, the body has no opportunity to change, to update, to rejuvenate itself. Same with the
Yeah.
mind. So
Hmm.
it's, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I wonder, like, would like, if maybe even sleeping just 4 hours is enough. Like, because doctors say, like, well, you should sleep 7 to 8 hours, 6 to 7 to 8 hours, right? With seven being the average. Well, what if you sleep less than that? Because I mean, I've heard a lot of people, and a lot of monks, for example, or a lot of like people who meditate, people who pray, people who like get into this like meditative state, can lower their amount of sleep that they need, because since they're always in a calm state, they're not overusing their mental energy, and so they're only using it to a certain degree so that they actually don't have to uh, take that much sleep. They don't need that much sleep.
Yeah, I think you might be honest with me because it says here that a neuroscientist called Dr. Ying Hu Fu says that it's rare, but some people can go on with just 4 hours of sleep every night. So it seems like yeah, it's possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but is it because it's like just genetically there for some people, or is it because they develop the capacity to just run on 4 hours of sleep?
yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I could speculate. Yeah, it could be genetic.
Because to some degree, that's deprivation too.
Yeah,
Because they're not getting enough sleep, but
maybe.
it's just like it's interesting that some people can do that.
But you know what you said about the monks, that might be true too, because they're not using a lot of mental energy. They're not experiencing as much stress as the average person, I would assume, because of their practices. So, and I
Yeah.
think they go through like really deep training and meditation and control of their body in various ways
They
to.
create almost like an inner world where when they're meditating, they're also kind of quote unquote recharging or sleeping,
So
right?
that could play a
Maybe
role.
they're getting the same effects as sleep, and that's why they only
Exactly.
need certain amount of actual sleep.
That might be it. Yeah, that might actually be it. Yeah. So I mean, my final advice is no sleep can kill. So
Yeah.
don't do sleep deprivation, guys.
Yeah. And
Um,
I appreciate bringing up the topic. I guess my final thoughts on this would be that, I never thought it could lead to actual death after several days, but yeah, it's interesting how the mind in itself just unplugs and begins to atrophy as the time progresses without sleep.
yeah,
It's almost like it's almost like a phone. After, if you don't recharge it, after some time it's gonna hit the end,
yeah.
and it's just not gonna wake up until you recharge it.
If you
And
don't recharge
so
the brain during sleep, this yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It's crazy.
maybe the hallucinations are just an aspect of the body trying to tell you that you do need sleep, or like
No, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up actually. That just triggered something because I just remembered, REM sleep, that's when we dream. And when you deprive yourself of REM sleep, what happens is like alcohol, for example, can deprive people of REM sleep. So then when they stop drinking alcohol after a while, then they get REM rebound. And then that means that they're just flooded with vivid dreams and sometimes often nightmares because the REM sleep has to make up for all the lost REM sleep they didn't get. So maybe that's where
mm,
that could be where
maybe
the
that could be the hallucination. Yeah, like it's
yeah,
dreaming while being awake.
it's
Yeah.
REM rebound during the day. Exactly.
Mm, that's interesting.
That might be right because I think I remember reading something like that.
That's pretty
That,
cool.
that could explain. Yeah.
Nice. That's a good final note.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, if you like this video, please leave a like down below. Let us know what you thought was interesting. Have you had sleep deprivation? Have you ever been in that state before? Let us know down below what your experience was. And if you have any suggestions as well on what we could expand on in terms of this topic or other topics, feel free to leave that down below as well. So until next time, we will talk to you soon. Take care.